Hi, and welcome to Unit 12. I want to pick up on an idea that seemed to catch hold last week about the definition of transpersonal psychology, and that is that it's the field that studies the full range of human experience. I agree, that's a good definition, and it does obligate us to be specific about how we understand that full range of experience. Because I think most psychologies would say they study the full range of human experience. However, they define that full range in a less full way, in a restricted way compared to transpersonal psychology. So most psychologies would not include transpersonal experiences, mystical experiences, spiritual experiences, what Maslow called the farther reaches of human nature, higher levels of optimal mental health and human maturity. So, yes, let's say the full range of human experience. And let's be clear that we understand that full range of human experience to be more expansive and deeper, to include levels of spiritual maturity that other psychologies don't necessarily even agree with or don't articulate very clearly. Now, that full range of human experience also means that transpersonal psychology needs to grapple with some of the most difficult experiences that human beings can have. So the full range is going to include the best, optimal, highest, but also the lowest, most difficult, darkest, most anguished and suffering. And so this week we look at that end of the spectrum, the difficult experiences, through the concept of spiritual emergency. And I think you'll find that there's a good bit of thinking that's gone into this, and even fairly good ideas about practice and how to support somebody in a spiritual emergency. The guidelines, at least, are very clear, and not a lot of research on that, but I would like to see it. There is some good research coming out on spiritual emergency, including an instrument to measure or operationally define spiritual emergency, and that's a necessary step on the way to more validated treatment methods or ways of supporting someone in a spiritual emergency. There's another concept that comes out this week that I'd like to draw your attention to briefly. You'll see it in the lecture material, and that is the notion of a mystical experience with psychotic features. MEPF. Mystical experience with psychotic features differentiated from psychotic experience with mystical features. So, see, this idea of mystical experience assumes that there is some validity to spirituality, to transpersonal experiences. And it recognizes that sometimes those come with the intense suffering that's associated with psychotic experience, the difficulty of dealing with those mystical experiences. So in a way, it's just another way, a kind of more formal way to define spiritual emergency as mystical experience with psychotic features. There's so that would be one connection between spiritual emergency and the more formal world of clinical psychology and psychiatry. Another is that spiritual emergency sometimes looks like a bipolar experience. Now, that makes sense. Bipolar meaning swings from ecstasy and completely high energy and high emotions to depression and darkness. But that makes some sense to me. If a person has a spiritual experience, it makes sense that they would be energized by it. They'd be uplifted, not just uplifted, but blissed out, like really carried away in a positive way. And as we know, when those experiences aren't mirrored, by one's environment, when they're not supported, when there's nobody to talk to about them, that could lead to darkness, to depression. So you could see some similarity between spiritual emergency and bipolar disorder, as well as spiritual emergency and, say, brief psychotic reaction or mystical experience with psychotic features. So in any case, we dig into a particular sort of aspect of transpersonal psychology this week, and I look forward to those discussions. The other thing that I want to mention here in this brief little introduction is about the contemplative practice for this week. Up until now, most of, maybe even all the contemplative practices we've done in the course have been focused on you as an individual, developing your awareness of your body, of your breath, of your environment, of your posture, and so forth. But this week we shift that. We invite you to be more mindful of your views of other people, simply to be curious. How is it to observe other people, not necessarily to interact directly with them, but simply to observe, to notice as you go through your life and interact with people, or just, in the same place as other people, to let yourself be interested and mindful of how you view other people. It's not to change or cultivate any particular state or way of relating to other people, but it's just to see what happens when you allow this interest, openness, curiosity about other people in a mindful or contemplative way. So I hope that makes sense. If not, bring it into the office, or maybe even better, into the threaded discussion this week. So look forward to our discussions. Let's bow. Bye for now.